Good evening, everyone. I am Chris. Alone tonight, I'm afraid. No JX editor tonight. He's feeling a little bit under the weather. He's lost his voice. So it falls to me tonight to man the review for The Mandalorian. We're up to season 3, episode 4 right now. The Foundling, or chapter 20, if you're still keeping count at this point. This episode was actually directed by Carl Weathers. I did actually look ahead and saw that Carl Weathers was directing one, but I couldn't remember if it was today's one or a future one. But no, it was today's one. I don't think this review is going to be all too long, in all honesty. My notes aren't that exhaustive, especially following on from last week's episode where it actually felt like there was more to talk about. This one's pretty standard, really, as it comes with Mandalorian episodes. It's very episodic in nature, kind of harkening back to the season 1 episodes, really, but not a whole lot happens, really. And the stuff that does is kind of questionable. So, I'm going to pass over to you guys as well. If you guys are tuning in or watching this after the fact, let me know your thoughts on The Mandalorian. How do you think season 3 is shaping up at the moment? I've seen it's kind of been met with indifference, really. I haven't really seen many people talking about it, and people have seemed pretty mixed on it so far from what I've seen. But I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts, and let me know if you're actually enjoying it or if you, like the rest of the crowd, are just kind of jump ship now at this point. I will say for me so far, season 3, I haven't hated it. I hated episode 1. I will say that. The other episodes, they've been fine. They've been pretty run-of-the-mill and standard. I did enjoy last week's with a sense of world building with Coruscant and seeing it post Return of the Jedi. But I've seen a lot of people be really negative on last week's episode. The fact that it was kind of like an episode of Andor, and people saying that like it's a bad thing. I will say in terms of pacing, it's very frustratingly paced. I don't think last week's episodes did it any favors. With the fact that it started off like a Mandalorian episode and then went into basically an episode of Andor with a very, very minor supporting character. And then we kind of came back around at the end of it to a Mandalorian episode. This one, it feels like it's just dragging its feet a little bit now. It doesn't really seem to have much forward momentum. Mando as a main character just seems like he's taken a bit of a back seat the last couple of episodes, which is a shame because, you know, season 1 was really through his eyes. He was the man with no name kind of thing that we were following, even for series 2 as well, really. This one's kind of branching off in loads of different directions, which, you know, if it comes to a head, might not even be a bad thing. But at the moment, it's a little frustrating. Mando hasn't really got all that much of a look in, I don't think, to be honest. But let's get into the episode. As I say, I really don't think this will be a long review tonight, guys. I don't have much to talk about. So we kick off with a training session. So you've got Mando, who introduces Grogu to the rest of the Mandalorians during this combat training. And you've got the bratty kid who was introduced in episode 1 before they got attacked by a giant monster. A giant dinosaur turtle, apparently, is the name. I wanted to know what it was called, okay? And the actual on Wikipedia, the actual name for the creature, the big crocodile thing that attacked them in episode 1, that makes an appearance in this when it has the Jurassic World moment, is called a dinosaur turtle. So dinosaurs exist in Star Wars, I guess. They didn't even have the fucking originality to come up with an original alien name for it. It is literally called the dinosaur turtle. I can't fucking believe that. Anyway, this little kid, Ragnar, I think it's called Ragnar Vizsla. He's paired against Grogu. And they've got this sparring session where it's almost like paintball. They have to kind of like tag each other or something like that. And somehow, like, somehow someone happens to have a Baby Yoda-sized wrist rocket for Grogu. So they're in this training session and they get points by tagging the other person with like a paintball or something like that. And it's this really unfair match between the two of them. Mando's really pushing Grogu to fight and to spar and to train up. He treats him like a Pokemon. He's like enslaved this poor creature and he's like, right, now you've got to fight. You're like, I know he's 50 years old, but you know, he's still a baby. And it's like, right, now you got to fight this like 10-year-old or whatever. It's really weird that Vizsla's got a son as well, because to my knowledge, I could be wrong, I don't believe he's ever mentioned that he's had a son. Do you have to keep the helmet on when you're conceiving a child as a Mandalorian? I don't know how it works. Every time I try and think about the ins and outs of everyday life with the Mandos, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we see that later on in the episode as well, where you have to, if you're a group of Mandos, you have to go off and find your own place to eat in isolation, so that you can take the helmet off so that you can eat, so that no one can see your face. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm trying to think of the ins and outs of how this guy has a son. I didn't think these people had children. I thought they were just, they lived by the creed, and I guess like the children that they interact with is like foundlings that come into their creed, whether they're rescued or whatever it happens to be. That was it. But no, he's got a son, and I don't think he's ever mentioned a son. Has this son always been part of the creed? Do the Mandos have a nursery? Do they have a creche where the young little Mandos can go to? I don't know. It's the whole thing is just kind of ridiculous to me. And seeing them in broad daylight as well, it just looks like a really... I mentioned this in episode 1. It just looks like a really bad Comic-Con convention to me, seeing all these people dressed up. Anyway... Bo-Katan, I think it's Bo-Katan, pulls out these little Baby Yoda wrist rockets. I don't know why they make them that small. The kids that fight, they mentioned that Baby Yoda is... I keep calling him Baby Yoda. They mentioned that Grogu is too young to fight, basically, which tells me you wouldn't have a wrist rocket this size. You'd have one for a kid who's maybe like 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. It's just a really, really unfair fight, because Grogu's got the Force and uses the Force to beat Ragnar. Ragnar takes a shot at Grogu and gets him with one tag, and then he takes a second shot and gets him with the second one. And then Grogu uses the Force to like front flip over him, catch him off guard, and then tags him 3 times. Well, why couldn't Ragnar have just stood there and literally just shot Baby Yoda 3 times and he's done? Or just, repeatedly keep popping him with paintballs. I don't get how this whole match works. It's ridiculous. Right after that, what's his name? Ragnar Vizsla is snatched by... I wrote down a dragon or pterodactyl. This giant winged beast flies down, which just proves to me that wherever they've set up base, wherever this planet is, wherever this, cliffside place is, where they're doing their training, it's not a good place to have a secret base. In the first episode, they got attacked by a fucking dinosaur turtle, and then in this, they're getting attacked by a giant pterodactyl thing, which I also found out the name for is called a shriek hawk, which is a terrible name again, but I will take shriek hawk over fucking dinosaur turtle. It's like, guys, what do we call this thing? Well, it's fucking dinosaur turtle. Call it that. Anyway, this boy is snatched by this giant pterodactyl thing. Then I believe that Bo-Katan and that get like a rescue party together and go after it and try and fly back to its nest so that they can go and rescue the boy. Right around this time, Grogu is getting some armor made by the blacksmith, and once again, I think this is like the 2nd, 3rd, maybe even 4th time that this has happened, actually, because it happened a lot in Mando Series 1, I remember. Every time there was a blacksmith scene, the main character would have some kind of harrowing flashback to their past, and it happens again. So the blacksmith, she's the armorer, she's creating the armor for Grogu, and we get a flashback to the Jedi purge at the Jedi Temple during Order 66 from Revenge of the Sith. Clone troopers burst in, and we're seeing Jedi getting wasted left, right, and center. And then our focus shifts to this brand new Jedi. I'm going to bring it up on the thumbnail right now. You've probably seen him already. This character right here, played by Ahmed Best, as I'm sure everyone's aware, the guy who played Jar Jar Binks. He's got a second shot at playing a non-CGI character, I guess following in the footsteps of Andy Serkis with Andor, where he played the guy at the prison. Also played Snoke, obviously, in the sequel trilogy. This guy apparently is called Jedi Master Kelleran Beck. I don't believe he's named in the episode itself. He could be, if I just missed it. And he whisks Grogu away from the purge. It's cool seeing clone troopers again, I will say that. There's a bit of a fight outside, and he makes it away onto a speeder. We get a nighttime chase through the cityscape of Coruscant. I have loved seeing Coruscant, actually, the last couple of times. It's nice that modern Star Wars actually remembers Coruscant. I'm going to bring up... JX has given me some notes here that he's taken from the episode. I wanted to share a couple of these as well, because although he's not here tonight, I want to include him in spirit. And he's mentioned shout out to Ahmed Best. Referring to Grogu as well, he mentions that they keep bringing up that he can't talk. It's like they're trying to convince us he won't be talking by the end of the season. I'm with him on that. I think by the end of the season, we're going to get Grogu's first word. I definitely think that's going to happen. Anyway, during this chase scene with the clones, we get the ARC troop carriers, or whatever they're called, the big gunships, the clone gunships. And they're chasing him throughout the streets. And the Jedi Master... I don't know why we haven't seen this character before. If he's a Jedi Master, that tells me he would be maybe on the Council, or we would have seen him at Geonosis, or we should have seen this character before. To me, it was treated like a named character that we'd seen before. And it really wasn't. Anyway, he makes it to this landing platform, and there's a Nubian freighter. It's like I think it's the Attack of the Clones one, actually. It's the one that Padme flies. It's the pointy silver Nubian ship that she has in that movie. Different to the one that she has in Phantom Menace. JX has written, whose ship do you think that is? It's the same kind of Nubian freighter as Padme had in Episode 2. For some reason, it changes movie to movie. Like, why? That's a very good question, because, yeah, you've got random Nubian people stationed there, almost like they were ready to whisk him away, like it was all part of the plan, which, of course, it wouldn't be. The clones show up and start wasting these Nubian pilots, I guess, soldiers, which seems really out of character, because I'm sure that would be reported, or someone would notice that had happened. To me, they were passing off the Jedi purges that the Jedi were taking over. That's exactly what Palpatine says. The Jedi are taking over. Like, that was the plan. Palpatine's story, his cover story, was that all of a sudden, the Jedi, who were the guardians of peace and justice for 1,000 generations or 1,000 years, whichever one you're going with, suddenly snapped, became power hungry, and started to murder everyone. So they had to go in and put a stop to it. And then all of us, so I thought that was the cover story, and they did it all, very low key at the Jedi Temple. There's a bit where in Episode 3 we see a clone trooper point a gun at Bail Organa and says, "There's been a rebellion. Like, I'm sorry, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." It's almost like armed police, like, back away. We're dealing with this. We're sorting this thing out. And then he sees them waste a Jedi, and that's when he panics and he flies away in his speeder. But I don't think the troops went around, like, killing innocent civilians at that point anyway. And certainly not that close to Order 66. Seeing clone things chasing down a speeder throughout the night sky of Coruscant, where everyone can see, doesn't seem very covert to me. But I'm interested to hear your guys' opinion on that anyway. We then cut back to the main... So that's where it ends. I'm assuming we're going to come back to this Jedi Master at some point and continue on with Grogu's journey. I appreciate that they've actually explained what happened with Grogu, and we are getting some answers. I've heard that in the next couple of episodes there could be some big canon stuff happening. I did hear that, so I guess we'll find out next week or in the next couple of weeks. We then cut back to the Mando storyline, where they're scaling this cliff to get to the... what was it called? Shriek Hawk's Nest. This giant pterodactyl thing flies down and regurgitates the boy out. And JX has written, for a second, I thought the beast was going to regurgitate a pile of meat and armor. Disappointed. No one's ever really gone in Star Wars, and we can't have a child dying in Star Wars unless George Lucas is making it, in which case you can have a lot of younglings get killed. This pterodactyl thing vomits the child out into the nest. He's completely fine. He's totally unharmed. And then there's like 3 pterodactyl chicks, trying to eat him. There's a bit of a fight. Fight. They get the kid back. They kill the Shriek Hawk. What I will say is actually the CGI is very good. During the flight sequences, both on Coruscant and with the Shriek Hawk, the CGI looked on point. Really, really good. Considering it's a TV show, looks right next to the movies, in my opinion. But it is Disney money, so they're not short of money. And you can definitely see the money on the screen with this series as opposed to the likes of Kenobi that came out, for example. And then we get the Jurassic World moment, or as JX has written, there's always a bigger fish. The Shriek Hawk's killed by flying too close to the water, and then the dinosaur turtle, I guess, comes out of the water, like the mosasaur from Jurassic World, grabbing the pterodactyl and dragging it into the watery depths. They get back, they're reunited, everyone's happy, everyone's great. And then there's a really bizarre moment at the end where I'm going to bring up the notes here. And JX agrees with it here. He's put the Mandalorians are raising the dragons. Yeah, so they bring the because we've got to end on a positive note. And it did occur to me, I thought the Mandos have just killed these 3 chicks' mom, and they won't get food, they won't get sustenance, so they're going to be dead. Anyway, the next shot we see, the Mandos have rescued these 3 baby chicks. And they said, we have some new foundlings in the ranks. So I interpreted that as, are they going to make like pterodactyl-shaped armor for these 3 pterodactyl chicks that are now foundlings, are going to fight for the Creed? Or are they going to fly around on them? I assume it's the latter, but the way that it was said just really made me laugh because, we've got a Grogu and we're trying to make him armor for like this little tiny, toddler Yoda-sized thing. And now we've got pterodactyls in the foundlings. Is that how it works? Okay. Weird. Very, very weird. And then the finale of the episode is Bo-Katan getting some pauldrons made, I believe. And the armorer says what sigil she wants on the armor. And she mentioned something about like a night owl or something like that. But then she wants a mythosaur on the other one. And she tells the armorer that she has seen one. She's seen a mythosaur. And the armorer doesn't really believe her. She says, the pool of the sacred Mandalore pool of tears, or whatever it's called, shows many things. Things that were, things that are, and some things that have not yet come to pass. And that it shows like many visions and stuff like that. And she doesn't believe her that she actually saw a mythosaur. Bo-Katan's adamant that she saw one, and the armor is just kind of indifferent and walks away, and that's it. That's the episode. I really don't have much to say on this one. There's not really much to unpack. The meat of the story really is that flashback scene how Grogu escaped. I think we were maybe all thinking that it could be a Jedi that we all know. It isn't. I guess it's cool to see Ahmed Best get another shot at Star Wars after he's had like a really bad time with it. But we don't really get much about his character. We don't know who he is. We don't get much backstory with him. So are they setting up a second storyline that's going to run parallel to the show so we can see more of what happened? The pacing's just all off with this show though, because it doesn't really follow on from anything from last week's episode with the Coruscant stuff. So that stuff feels weirdly placed in the episode, and then this one just kind of diverts and we get the whole flashback with Grogu. Mando really doesn't seem like he's doing much this series so far. He took himself on a little trip to Mandalore and then got rescued a bunch of times, but it doesn't really seem like he's the focus this series. It doesn't seem like he's leading the charge like he has before. Kind of feels like the Bo-Katan show a little bit at the moment, and Mando's just kind of there. Other than that, it's the Mandos fight a giant pterodactyl. And it kind of falls into the story trap that we've seen a lot of times where they're just fighting a big creature. We got it in the opening episode of season 1. We get it in the bit where they fight the crate dragon. We get it again in this. We had it again in episode 1 of season 3 with the dinosaur turtle. I'm just kind of bored. I'm just kind of bored with the series. It feels like they're just throwing darts at a board each week. It doesn't feel like there's much narrative drive. There was at the beginning, I guess, episode 2, you know, getting to Mandalore straight away and getting it done. I thought, okay, we're in good hands here. This one just seems like it's just kind of meandering. We get an encounter with a giant shriek hawk and we have to fight it and rescue the kid. That's it. If it fits into things in the greater scheme of things, then maybe I'll look back on this episode and think, oh, there was a point to it. As I watch this, I mean, look at the runtime. I mean, I was done about 5 minutes ago. It's a really short review, guys, so I'm going to leave it there anyway. You know, the review probably would have been longer if I'd have had JX on. We could chat about it more, but I messaged him earlier today and said I really don't think this is going to be a long review because there's just nothing to talk about. There really isn't. So I am going to end it there. You know, of course, you can expect these each week, 10 p.m. GMT every single week, every Wednesday. I'll be on with hopefully JX Editor next week if he's back to full health again, because it's always good having a Star Wars conversation anyway. Yeah, I'm not too jazzed with season 3 at the moment, and I do feel like Star Wars is dying to me. Well, I mean, it's already dead. It's long since dead, but I was hoping that Mando might recapture something a little bit for me, and it hasn't quite done that yet. So hopefully it picks up by the end. There's a lot of storylines that it's juggling at the moment, and I feel like it needs to just focus in on itself and tell a straight story. It's just kind of all over the place at the moment, like it doesn't really know what it wants to be. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to you guys. Let me know your thoughts on The Mandalorian. What did you think to this week's episode, and any speculation that you have regarding the future of the series and where you think it might go. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. I will be back tomorrow night, for my review on John Wick Chapter 4, one of my 2 most anticipated movies of the year. Between that and Mission Impossible 7, I've been dying for a John Wick Chapter 4, and I've heard fantastic things about it. I've heard really good reviews, 10 out of 10s, masterpieces, one of the best action films. The fact that the John Wick films keep getting better and better, I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll be seeing that tomorrow. Expect a review sometime in the evening. And give me a follow on Twitter. Why not? You can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. I'm occasionally on there sometimes, but more than likely I'm going to be on YouTube and, you know, in the community section on there. So that'll do it for me tonight. And actually, I'm going to give a shout out to JX Editor, although he wasn't on tonight. Please do go and subscribe to JX Editor as well. He's got a lot of stuff in the works, especially Star Wars related too. And yeah, hopefully he can join me next week. So that's youtube.com/JXEditor. Go and check him out. Give him a follow on there. And yeah, that'll do it for me, guys, anyway. And I will catch you guys on the next review. See ya.